have here, and how many people I'm going to have to ban. All of the bans! And don't worry, I've got the ban hammer ready to go, as usual. What I want to do is I'm going to give it a minute, because I don't know... See, what I've been thinking, I'm still debating format. I know it takes a minute for, like, it takes a minute for it to go live, basically. For ads to go through and all that. So I'm just kind of chilling for a minute. So we've got Savicom. We've got one person. We did it, guys. We got one person here. We have 2 people. Holy crap. I'm already impressed. We're already passing our board game week nights attendance. That's not true. Board game night actually usually has an attendance of about 14. Seriously, I checked. I have the figures. I'm going to go ahead and hit record. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a experiment. Now, the idea here is we're kind of feeling out what it's going to feel like to do a My Little Pony mini nation. That's not true. We're feeling out how it's going to do a mini nation in general in this format. Because if this works, then this at least opens the door a little bit for doing mini nations in the future. If it doesn't work, well, then MLP will be the last one. And that will be the end of that. Not something I particularly want to do. Kai Varil Valem, I agree. But we'll see what happens. Now, I do have my notes, as always. What I do, for those of you curious, when I'm doing my mini nations, I basically approach this in the exact same way I always do a mini nation. I've got Notepad+, which I know what you're thinking, why Notepad+? Well, let me demonstrate. Okay, I'm going to get nice and close to the monitor. You see this? So there's Notepad+. Now, let me open Notepad, and you'll probably see the difference. Yeah, so Notepad+ has a dark background option. Although it's a mod. But it works! Let's talk about the episode. First, I want to talk about the stuff that reminded me of early, there's a term for that, like early syndrome. You know, when an episode first goes live, or a show first goes live, and it's like, hey, here's this show. And it's just weird and wrong, and, you know, like Mega Man 1 to Mega Man 2, or Encounter at Farpoint to... Actually, Encounter at Farpoint's not a good example. What is a good example? Hang on. You know what a good example for TNG would be? No, it's not The Naked Now. It's not Code of Honor. It's not Where No One Has Gone Before. It's not Justice. It's not The Battle. It's not Hide and Q. Haven! That's it, isn't it? Yep, it's Haven. And I know what you're thinking. Why Haven? That was like the first... Actually, it was the second episode they produced. And they had no idea what they're doing, and by God, it shows. Which is especially weird since Haven actually went live 6th. So yes, we're doing this live as a thing. For those of you who didn't catch Lore Week this morning, we're trying a new format here to see how we can do this. But anyways, getting back to my original point, I felt like there was a fair amount of wobbly leg syndrome. I like that, Alex. In this first episode of MLP. Now, to be clear, I'm doing this the same way I would do it if I was doing these pre-recorded. So this is only the first half of the first episode, the one that cuts off with "Dun dun dun, I'm her moon." That one. So, Ash, I noticed 2 things, and I want to point out both things because there's actually 3 things that really, if I'm being honest, pushed me away from this episode. The first is Ashley Ball, who plays Applejack and Rainbow Dash, doesn't really distinguish them all that well. For the most part, I can very clearly tell that that's the same actress doing both roles. Now, in the future, that's not true. She actually does a much better job of distinguishing herself in future episodes. But in this one, and actually the next one, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, it's actually more obvious in the next one where Rainbow Dash and Applejack actually talk to each other. But there's several scenes where it just sounds like Applejack is Rainbow Dash with a southern accent. There's also some really weird things with the music. How many of you guys noticed that? I'm actually really curious. And of course I can ask you and you can respond to me live rather than me waiting on the comments. Although if you're responding on the comments on YouTube, you can do that too. By the way, hi Jovan. Who else is here? Hi, Savicom. Hi, Darth Tyron. Hi, Bio. Hi, Zechariah. Hi, Alex. Hi, Epsilon. Hi, SJ. Hi, Aethel. Hi, Zero. Hi, Sinister Wing. Yeah, the music was just... it felt like the music direction was legitimately off, in my opinion. Hi, If and But. Like, one of the ones, I've never forgotten this, it's right towards the beginning. She's like, no, thanks, I can't do friend stuff, I have to go receive something, and she rushes off, and this really weird guitar riff starts up. Like, can you picture it, especially if you've seen it recently? You know, it's like a weird guitar-y, like light rock take on the MLP central theme. And it's strange. I don't even know what they were thinking with that. And it's not an isolated incident. As I was watching this time with analysis mode on, I noticed it everywhere. It also felt like there was a lot of moments of, this is going to sound strange, cartooniness, especially with regards to the sound direction and the music direction. Quite a few moments where it's like, let me use a direct example. Twilight Sparkle has just come into the tree, and she's walking around, and it's all dark, right? Because she's like, okay, Spike, I have to get some work done. I have to research, but I can't do it if I'm surrounded by crazy ponies. Now, turn the light switch on. And then there's all the ponies there, and they're like, surprise! And then the music does this little kind of a thing. You know, like winking at the audience kind of a bit. Very cartoony, very Hanna-Barbera in its way. And yeah, I didn't like that at all. And the third thing I didn't like, it felt, I've talked before about what eventually drew me to MLP. To be clear, this was not actually the first episode I ever saw. In fact, I could tell you the first episode I ever saw. It's the second Discord one. The one where Discord came back after being defeated. That was the first episode ever that I had seen of this series. That's the one that impressed me. That's the one that got my attention. Remember, I only became aware of this 3 years ago. They were in season 6 when I started becoming aware of this show. So, you know, I was just like, huh? You know, I didn't know what to make of this when I went back to it. It's just like, oh, geez. So I'm kind of glad that by coincidence I didn't start in the equivalent of Encounter at Farpoint with this one, because, well, just like Encounter at Farpoint, I probably wouldn't have stuck with the show if not for that, you know? This is one of the reasons I never recommend people start Star Trek with the beginning. You start middle. Figure out if you like the good stuff, then go back. So I just want to say something really quick. I think it was Cairns in chat earlier said something. He's only here to see how the format works. I am reading chat as usual, by the way, so don't think I'm not. But I wanted to mention something because one of the things I've talked about recently. Exactly, Sinister Wing. I agree completely. One of the things I've talked about recently is how much we tend to get mocked and belittled for things we like or our opinions. And I imagine most of you understand what I'm talking about with that, because you're here listening to me. It's getting better. Most of the wave of hate and anti-culture or whatever has kind of gone away or died down a little bit. But if you rewind time a few years, people were getting vitriolic about My Little Pony. Now, that's not new to me. I like Star Trek. Remember that? You remember that? Because I do. Here's another one for you. Some of you may be old enough to remember this one. I like video games. Yeah. Nah. So, I have to say, it's actually refreshing to see an anime. Liking anime. That's a good one. I never actually liked anime back in the day. But I knew a lot of friends who did. And I know a lot of people who made fun of them for it. You know, we've gotten to the point now where it's considered okay for someone who is male to admit the fact that they liked, oh God, what's it called? Like, schoolgirl outfit, and she spins around, and she's magical. Help me out. I can't think of the name of it. It's an older anime. It's like from the 80s or 70s. Sailor Moon, thank you. It's becoming acceptable now in 2019 for a guy to admit that they like Sailor Moon. To be clear, I don't. But I know someone who does, personally. I know a guy who liked Sailor Moon and had to just stay quiet about that for almost all of his childhood. Because, same problem, right? That's a good question, Javan. And that's a very valid point. A lot of shows don't really get good until a certain point. I would argue, having seen season 1 and 2 of My Little Pony, that it only really gets good in season 3. Now, that sounds funny, doesn't it? Because I would say the same thing about The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, and Enterprise. I can keep going. Clone Wars? Here's another one. Rebels managed to bypass that.
Oh, welcome.
Okay, who's donating? I don't even have the thing up. I don't even have the thing up. I can hear it. Hang on. I wasn't expecting donations during these. Don't donate during these. These are supposed to be short and brief and not donatey. Don't give me money. Probably not, Venters, no. It's from the Count! I gotta read this one out loud. The Count says this is money for being brave enough for talking about MLP on camera. This is exactly what I was just talking about. I do like My Little Pony, and I am not ashamed of that fact. And frankly, I don't think anybody should be. As long as they keep it within reason. After all, everything I just mentioned, anime, video games, comic books, that was actually Bio's contribution, and Star Trek, there are people who like those things and like it too much. There is such a thing as liking it too much. But that's not a problem with Star Trek. That's not a problem with anime. That's a problem with a person who goes too far. And yeah, there are people who like MLP who take it too far, in my opinion. Just like with everything. There are people who like Undertale who take it too far. I mean, come on, we could play this game all day. But I do want to say thank you very much, The Count, for the donation. Much obliged, sir. I don't even have the document up to keep track of that. Give me a second. I am completely not ready for donations. Give me a sec. Really not set up for this. Here we go. Okay. We'll just jump this down here. And that's going towards Pokemon Shield. Yeah, Rick and Morty. That's another modern example. That's a great modern example. You're fine, The Count. Thank you so much. Rick and Morty is really a fantastic example of that. Now, I don't like Rick and Morty the show. However, basically all of my friends do. So I've seen quite a few episodes as a consequence of being over at their house while they're watching it. And it's just, huh? You know, I just realized this is supposed to be an MLP mini rumination. Let me talk about the episode. I do actually have a full page of notes. And that's actually the second thing I want to talk about. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the early weirdness. Just very strange things about the show. And the weird cartooniness and the weird music takes and the audio directing. The second thing I wanted to talk about was I had a lot of notes for a 22-minute episode. Now, to explain what I mean by that, usually, to date, all of the shows, Amazon Ventures, I get all my stuff on Amazon for this kind of thing. All the shows and movies I watch for the show, I just grab on Amazon because I get credit for it and it's cheaper and it's easier. So it's just... Anyways, so I usually every mini rumination that I've done so far has been a 22-minute show as opposed to the standard 44-minute show. If you don't understand what I mean about that, Star Trek is a 44-minute show. Farscape is a 44-minute show. You know, Stargate SG-1, 44-minute show. Most of these shows, Rebels, Clone Wars, Young Justice, My Little Pony, and the ones that I have on the potential for the future, which include Batman the Animated Series, most of the DCAU, all of that is 22-minute stuff. So the 22-minute stuff usually tends to fit the mini rumination format better. What is up with my green screen? You see that? Look at that. I have no issues normally. I think it's just the background. Because normally it's a dark background instead of this really light, awesome background. Anyways, so that being said, I had a lot of notes for a 22-minute episode. And I bring that up because this, more than anything, makes me think this might actually be rumination material, not mini rumination material. Ignoring the fact that I've been rambling on for 14 minutes now, which is longer than I think any of my mini-nations. And we haven't even gotten to the episode proper yet. Just food for thought. Just food for thought. I mean, I recently covered a DS9 episode. In fact, I'll pull it up right now just to make my point. That would be the episode Let's pick a really short one. Prodigal Daughter, Season 7, Episode 11. You know how long my rumination was on that? 14 minutes and 38 seconds. In about a minute, I will have passed that. Anyways, granted this is the first episode, so we have a lot to talk about. Magister asks a valid question. What is My Little Pony? My Little Pony was an attempt to make basically a more intelligent and more complex storytelling story for young girls. It was designed for younger females. And that was the intent, but as a logical consequence of general quality of animation, quality of voice acting, and general direction of storytelling, as well as the aforementioned complex storytelling, it grew a larger fan base than was originally intended. That's My Little Pony in a nutshell. It is a cartoon that is, in my opinion, pretty well animated. Oh, excuse me, Western Girls. I should clarify that. That is a valid point. Let's talk about the episode proper. Right at the beginning, we get base-level Mythos. Now, what's interesting about this is they'll actually flesh out this Mythos and backstory in future episodes. I have to admit, like I said, I've seen future episodes of this show, so I was trying to kind of divorce myself from some of that knowledge for the Mini-Nations. So, right at the beginning, we get your fairly typical Mythos. There was once two ponies, and they both raised the moon and the sun into the sky, but then one of them became evil for no explained reason. I'll have thoughts on that at some point. And so this one is now the only one doing it, because screw you. Notice nothing about the dream thing is even in this, which would eventually become Luna's shtick, is having, domain over the dream realm. I just think that's interesting. It's another example of how a show can be developed over time. I could also comment on the fact that the creator Lauren Faust actually did create a fairly large amount of backstory to the story, most of which has since been thrown out of the window because she stopped being involved with the show right around season 2. Now, Savacom says it's because no one loved her. I disagree. I don't know if we should discuss that now, because this will come up more later, but every time the show has actually showed the Luna to Nightmare Moon to Luna transformation, enough has been done in the design of the animation and the voice acting to make me think that it's not something that she is transforming into. It makes me think that it is something that is being put upon her. An infection, if you will, some kind of evil influence. This is also interesting because if you pay attention to the comics, this is actually something that happened to Rarity in the comics. An external evil influence, I can't remember the name of it right now, was on Rarity, and she turned into a Nightmare Moon version of Rarity. Well, that's true, Savacom, but my point being that in this episode, no reason is given. Not really. It's like, oh, she grew bitter and became incredibly evil. Yeah, I'm going to go with no reason on that one. Typical Mythos is my point. Typical Mythos. Why did she go evil? Because. But she was a good person. Yeah, well, now she's evil. Why? Because she was bitter. I mean, haven't you ever had the thing where you're waiting in the lunch line and you want to get 3 steps forward and you just want to kill everyone? Oh my God, I just want to kill everyone. That's what happened to her. It's very natural and logical. Stop looking at me like that. Sorry, Zachariah. That caught me. That caught me. I wasn't ready for that. But yes, that's how Mythos tend to be. That's my point. That is exactly my point. It's a Mythos. Now, I point that out, though, because as much as I don't like that type of storytelling in general, it is indicative of the type of storytelling they're going for. Because right at the beginning, Miss Faust and the general creative staff didn't want to just make high school anime number 337, right? They wanted to have something approaching, I have no better word for this, a more epic form of storytelling. Larger scale stakes, larger scale heroes, big sweeping adventures, that kind of a thing, right? Excuse me. So we see this idea and this approach right at the beginning. We also see, in typical Mythos, the introduction of the Silmarillion. The elements of harmony, my bad. And the elements of harmony, well, I have a lot to say about those, but I can't talk about them now because at the moment all they are is a vaguely referenced MacGuffin. Here's some gems. Oh, actually, we don't even know they're gems yet. Here's some things. And they're used by Celestia in order to seal away Luna. By the way, fun fact, I never even realized we don't actually see Celestia in this entire episode. It's weird to think about, considering how much of a common character she will be on this show. Anyways, so then we see the intro song. I don't actually like it. I don't care for it. I am pretty picky about intro songs in general. But I don't know, what do you guys think? You know, the one that plays... They've changed the intro a couple times visually, but it's the same damn song every time. At this point in time, I have trouble listening to the DS9 intro because I just keep hearing it over and over and over. Oh, God. It haunts my nightmares. No one's responding. Oh, God, I'm all alone. I'm all alone. I should turn incredibly evil and kill everyone. Tara Strong. I do have to give special credit for Tara Strong in this one. I've always liked her as an actress. I mean, duh, she's a very gifted voice actress. But she manages a very specific flavor with Twilight Princess, or Twilight Sparkle, excuse me, and will continue to do so going forward. And I just wanted to give her special praise for that. Although, we have to give even more praise for Tabitha St. Germain. I don't even know if I'm saying her name right, but good God. I decided to pull something up here. Give me a moment, okay? The following is a brief list. This is not a full list of all of the roles that Tabitha St. Germain plays on My Little Pony. Rarity, Princess Luna, Nightmare Moon, Granny Smith, Derpy Hooves, that's Muffin, Cupcake, Bonbon, Sweetie Drops, Cherry Berry, Pound Cake, Princess Flurry Heart, Shoe Shine, Rainbow Shine, Twinkle Shine, Lemon Hearts, Golden Harvest, Fleur de Verre, Pearly Stitch, Caesar, Daisy Joe, Comet Tail, Lotus Blossom, Aloe, Glamour Gleam, Zipper Will, Sprinkle Medley, Shadowbolt Leader, that's in the second episode, Dr. Hay, Leroy Winkins, yes, really, Philomena, Aunt George, Rarity Young, Cookie Crumbles, Millie, Wonderbolts, Derby Announcer, Silver Frames, Wildfire, Old Emporium. I'm actually only halfway through the list. I'm going to stop. I am literally only halfway through the list. She voices frickin' everyone. Yeah, she is the NPC voice of My Little Pony. She does an enormous number of roles in this, I almost said game, in this show. Special praise. Anyways, so right at the beginning, this actually is so amusing to me. Right at the beginning, we see Twilight Sparkle, and she's like, "Hey, oh, you're going to Moon Dancer's party. Sorry, I got other things to do. Bye." Now, if you don't understand why I'm weirded out by this, I actually have to admit that when I went back, so obviously, like I said, I started in season 3 or 4, whenever that was. I think that's season 3, beginning of season 3, something like that. And then I saw the episode where Twilight Sparkle goes back to reconnect with her friends, and I was like, wait. They're referencing stuff, and I went back to rewatch the first episode, and that actually is the same people. Was it season 5? It was season 5. I actually went back, and it was the same ponies and the same references at the same time, and I was just, wow. I'm actually a little surprised by that. Granted, season 4 and season 5 are two of my favorite seasons, so that makes sense. Hi, Mr. Red. Hope you're enjoying FF9. Anyways, I'm just amused at that because I don't think any of that was even remotely planned, because the whole point of that is to introduce us to our main character, Twilight Sparkle, which they do very efficiently and quickly. She isn't social, but she isn't shy. She just isn't social. She's got stuff to do. She's a little bit too focused on her work or whatever it is she's into, and I've known people like that. Totally not me. I gotta be honest. If I had to pick someone that the main 6 that most represented me, it would be Twilight Sparkle. I have at many times in my life completely ignored my social life in the favor of work. Thankfully, I don't do that anymore. I usually make it a point to actually spend time to take time to spend with friends and family, basically every evening, which is a good thing because I'm a massive extrovert. So, you know. But we do get that established very quickly, very efficiently. We also, one of the other interesting things, is they establish the telekinesis very quickly and very efficiently. So right off the bat, they present the idea very just immediately of, they've got the horns. The horn lights up with a little bit of magic, and then there's a little bit of magic about what they're doing, right? Yeah, I wouldn't know, John. I just wanted to point that out because that kind of exposition is actually really good. It's one of the first things that caught my attention about the show. They never sit down and say, as you imagine for a moment, if this was a bad show or a bad movie, and Spike says, as you know, Twilight Sparkle, Pegasi has the ability to move things effectively with the magic that they can control in their horn. And Twilight Sparkle says, of course, Spike, and that's why I can do things like lift this book off this. I've seen things that do that. No, instead they just kind of do it and present it, and we now know how it works because we've seen it in action. Boom. And yes, she is there's definitely a lot of pride in Twilight Sparkle, which, again, kind of sounds like me. Anyways, so we also get introduced to Spike, although she's not an alicorn yet, Alex. No, any Pegasi has the telekinesis thing. Anyways, so then we're introduced to Spike. Now, as much as I have a lot of praise for the introduction of the main character, Spike doesn't get a lot. Spike's kind of there. Wait, isn't he a unicorn? God damn it. You know what's funny is I actually looked this up just to make sure I had the right term. And it's like, yeah, no, she's a Pegasi. Okay, unicorn. Hang on, you know what? I have an idea. Let's just look something up real quick. Yeah, he's the pet, exactly. That's pretty much it. That's as far as that goes, really. Hello, where is... Really? Where is... This is strange. Enjoy the music for a second. Okay, this is very strange. Not that I don't believe you or anything. Okay, they are in fact called unicorns. I just wanted to be absolutely sure about that one. So, yes, sorry, unicorn, not Pegasi. So we have... What? So we have unicorn, Pegasi, earth ponies, and then alicorns. And those are the main ones. Moving on. Where the hell was I? Right. The horn. The exposition. Spike's there. The only thing that's really noteworthy about Spike is he's portrayed as someone sufficiently less, let's say, focused than Twilight Princess is, but also someone who has an ability to kind of see the larger picture. He comes across as the everyman, which is funny because he's played by a woman, but you get the idea. Looking at my notes here. Lots of random NPCs in the background. Whole lot of NPCs in the background. A Pegasus mixed with a unicorn is an alicorn. This has actually been established. Did I say Twilight Princess again? God dang it. I am a little tired. I've been smashing DS9 videos since I finished. Twilight Princess. Oh, sorry, every pony. There's a lot of good design in the NPCs in the backgrounds. Now that makes sense. Any good animated show worth its salt will go well into its work trying to make templates, basically. So you don't want your background to be empty. That would look like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. I don't know why I'm on a Hanna-Barbera stint lately. So instead they have scenes where you can see a building in the background and there's a bush and there's a thing and there's three people just talking and blah, 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 blah. This is all basic level stuff. But it was noteworthy because it once again shows a commitment to a directing style. And the mere fact that they are approaching this with the commitment to a directing style is one of the things that caught my attention when I first saw the show. They're trying to make it look like it's an actual show rather than a Kingdom Hearts game. Yeah, Kid Viper, that's actually a good parallel. There are some animes, some Western animation does this too, but there are some animes where the background characters are just not there. You know, there's blobs or there's like an outline of a crowd. You ever see that one? Instead, we actually see quite a few people actually physically in the background and actually being there. And it's good. I like that. Again, commitment. So then we meet Pinkie Pie. And then we say goodbye to Pinkie Pie. Goodbye. Then we meet... Applejack. Now, once again, the episode is trying to very quickly and very efficiently establish characters. So, basically, all of these characters come across as a cliche or an archetype. That makes sense. Because they're trying to just, here, this, and this, and then this, and then this, and then this. So it makes sense that they're trying to hit just the major points of each of their characters. So Applejack is all about family, very boisterous, very giving. Here, have a bunch of food. It's going to be awesome. She got a southern accent, which I can't do, of course. That immediately transitions into Rainbow Dash, not Applejack. God dang it. Yeah, she's also a hard worker. Yeah, good old boy. So forgive me, for those of you not aware, as I already talked about earlier, the same actress plays Applejack and Rainbow Dash. So, anyways... Rainbow Dash. I swear I've seen this show before. Rainbow Dash. Now, what I find interesting about her is it would be extremely easy to push Rainbow Dash, as she's portrayed in this episode, like 1 or 2 steps further into being a jerk. Into just being mean, right? But they pull her back from that line to the point where she's a little abrasive, but you still get the idea that there's no actual ill intent there. There's no maliciousness. Instead, she's just kind of, oh my God, you fell in the puddle. There's mud all over your face. And there's no actual malice there. She's just amused by it. And then she's like, oh, here, let me fix you up. And she does the tornado thing. And then that, of course, makes Twilight Sparkle's hair go all over the place. So she's like, okay, that looks even better. But notice how one of the first things they try to establish after getting that point across. Exactly, Savacom. One of the things she tries to establish right off the bat there is even though she's having a laugh at things, she'll try to help. And the dependability, which will become a major part of her character arcs. Because she's like, I'd never leave Ponyville hanging. 10 seconds. By the way, fun little animation fact. And you can do this when you're doing like a video game or an animated work. It is literally exactly 10 seconds from when Twilight Sparkle says, prove it, to when the last cloud goes away. 10 seconds to the nose, to the frame. Which, again, shows a little bit of attention to detail. The first time I ever saw this episode, I was like, wait a second, because I have a pretty good mental clock for that kind of thing. And I rewound and stop, and it was like, oh my God, that is actually 10 seconds. Again, attention to detail. You can see why this show started to catch my attention. So then we shift over to Rarity. Now, I'll admit, Rarity is a personal favorite of mine for reasons I can't go into right now, or at least I shouldn't go into right now. But I feel like they do a lot with her later. She's also the character that pisses me off the most at times, but we'll cover that when we get there. Rarity, of course, is the term I want to use is aristocrat. She's got that, you could just see her descending from on high, going down the staircase, the stairway. Yes, as she is this beautiful, wonderful person. But here's the thing. And again, this kind of helps to show the more complex presentation like they did with Rainbow Dash. She gives. It's not all about her. It's actually more about other people and how much she wants to be there for them, about how much she wants to give to them, about how she wants them to shine. What's the first? She's setting up this thing and trying to get everything ready to go to for this big celebration. Oh my God, this needs to go here, and I do this. And she starts to see Twilight Sparkle. And the first thing is like, oh my God, you poor thing. Let me immediately stop everything and make a new outfit and a new thing just for you. That's Rarity in a nutshell, right there. And that leads me to something I don't want to talk about, but I need to. So Spike has a crush on Rarity, and I think that was a mistake. It's worth noting that if I'm not mistaken, they basically completely abandon the Rarity Spike crush relatively early on. Just nuke it. Sorry, wrong hand. This one. Just nuke it. Like I think the last time they really showcased that is when Spike got turned into, teenage Spike and was rah, rah, and then oh no, and then they hold each other briefly, and there's this really brief moment where they're like oh, and then it's gone from that point on. I am Shadowlink, and I'm sure the people on YouTube are as well, and I'm sure the rest of the chat is as well. A generous soul. I like that, Zachariah. I like that's a good way to put that. But yeah, I think they nuked that very early, and I think that was the right move, and I'm going to explain why. Because it can't go anywhere. You can't have that go anywhere. Even having a relationship between two ponies is something that's actually going to be questionable because you can't have it go anywhere on this show. Right? Not in a kid's show. Yeah. There's simply limitations on that. Now, if this was not being restricted in such a manner, that'd actually be kind of interesting in its own right. I know that sounds strange, but I'm the person who likes a Bajoran, or sorry, wrong thing. I'm the person who likes a Klingon and a human getting together, so what the hell do I know? But my point is that it feels like that's the kind of thing that in a show that is, aimed at younger children, that should have probably never happened to begin with. It should have been just torpedoed right off the bat. Spike is just way too young. Rarity is an undetermined age. In fact, they never really established the age of the main six, if I'm not mistaken. You're funny, Mr. Red. And I get your point, Savacom, but I suppose my point is if they were going to go that route with it, then they should have cut it off very early. Which is actually funny, because that's exactly what they did. Thank you very much, Patagal. Much obliged and appreciate the sub, sir and or madam. Thank you. But yeah, they basically should have dropped it after this episode, I agree. So, it's sweet, and again, I'm this is going to sound strange, but I'm with cross-species relations, and I think a lot of that's because of my love of Star Trek, and my extremely stupid ideological idea of the fact that love isn't just a biological process, but is something that has more weight and meaning to it, and ergo is the kind of thing that should be able to bypass things like species, right? Like, that's an idea I'm actually totally down for. But again, in a kid's show, Was it intended to come across as cute? I don't actually know. I know a little bit of the behind the scenes on this stuff, but I don't actually know a lot. I don't know this to the extent that I know Star Trek. I could tell you about, directors and production cycles and all that stuff for Star Trek. I can't tell you about that, about MLP. Now, moving on. So after that, of course, we see Fluttershy. Fluttershy is my niece's second favorite pony, by the way. And I have known many people in my life who are like Fluttershy. Now, it's interesting in its own right. I mean, their relation. What do you mean themes and symbolism, Sinister Wing, if you don't mind my asking? I mean, how many of you guys can relate to Fluttershy, either personally or because of someone you know? I myself have had, let's call it, instances of shyness in my life. But like I said, I'm not really that. I'm more the Twilight Sparkle thing, like, I'm busy, I got stuff to do kind of a thing. But I have known people who I had to be so patient and so kind with, and just, it's like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's going to work out. There you go. It's all right. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. I know. Like, God, you just want to embrace them, right? Get that, it's that Papa Bear thing going on, in my case. Now, what I noticed, though, to continue this theme, is that Fluttershy is way shyer in this episode than she is in most episodes. In the future, it'll be toned back substantially. In this episode, she can barely even look at Twilight Sparkle, and she can't talk. She just squeaks. That's all she does. Now, she's meeting Twilight Sparkle for the first time, so Twilight Sparkle is a stranger, and Twilight Sparkle is coming across, this is going to sound strange, but kind of in an I don't want to say domineering way, but the point being, there's certainly a confidence and self-assurance. That's a good way to put it about Twilight Sparkle. So she just comes in, hi, I need this, and of course that would naturally make someone just kind of go, I could understand that. But yeah, she does grow out of this very quickly until she notices Spike. Now, this is the other thing I liked about this. You notice every single one of the main 6 introduced so far basically have 2 character traits. You've got the initial trope, the initial archetype, like Javan and I were talking about, and then they do something to kind of subvert it just a little bit, just to add a little bit of extra layer there. And this then gives them a launching point for going forward. Fluttershy's is very, very shy, but very, very, how do I phrase this? I guess passionate is the word I want to try. But it's all about how interesting and how much she's into it. What I mean by that is, I knew a friend once, this is a while ago, no names, of course. And by the way, I'm not ignoring you, Sinister Wing. I'll circle back around to that. Once upon a time, she was really shy and she didn't talk a lot. And I was me. So I was just trying to reach out to her and open the door for her and blah, blah, and be a friend. And after a while, I'm trying to remember exactly how it came into the conversation. But as an aside, I mentioned something about sewing. I want to say it was something about my aunt at the time. But either way, her ears basically perked up right on the spot. Like, huh? And I noticed because I'm me. And I was like, yeah, maybe you could help me. Like, she was doing a such and such dance. I'm not sure what it was. And I'll admit this is a trick I use periodically where I pretend to know less than I do. And it is a trick, and I'm going to go ahead and admit that. But I do that because it encourages other people to fill in the gaps. It's a way to try and encourage someone else to reach out to me. And I do that constantly. I do that just when I'm out at the grocery store. I'm not sure where the such and such is. Oh, it's over there, and you can do this. It's a way to encourage communication. So I do this, and yeah, she just lit up, and she starts telling me about this stitching and about how it works, and you just need this different kind of cloth, and blah, 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 blah. And it was a passion of hers. It was something she was really into. So I made a point of reading a bit about that and looking into it, and so I could have a conversation with her about it. And that's my point. I've noticed several people who tend to be that introverted also tend to be really into stuff. And that makes sense, because an introvert... I'm saying introvert, it's not quite introversion. It's more... Hamilton? Alright, we gotta stab Shadowlink. It's more about the fact that they don't need as much, and so this is just my incredibly amateur opinion, but because they need less in their life, they are more focused on what's there. Because they tend to get really into their hobbies and really into their passions. Which leads us to Fluttershy, who is super into Spike, who is a baby dragon, and he can talk, oh my god, and just tell me everything about your life. Oh my god, you're injured? And notice how smoothly she just picks him up and is like, oh, we gotta get you inside. Oh my gosh, you poor thing. You know, I love that showcasing of that passion. Yeah, Zachariah. Exactly. And yeah, passionate about fewer topics. I'm basically the exact opposite of myself. I'm passionate about, like, this, you know, I get everything. I cover everything. But I know a lot of people who are really into this and this. That's another good point, as Javan points out. The isolation probably buys into that too, because you're the only one, or you think you're the only one, who's into what you're into amongst the people you know or interact with. So that's another reason I like to reach out to people like that. I mean, it's true, Revan. It's very true. It's a common thing. Possibly Mr. Red? I don't know. I don't actually know how the spectrum works. Like, I'm not well versed in that, and I'm not going to speak of that. I know a little bit, but that's more about the more severe stuff. You know, actual bipolar disorder. That's something I know about. Anyways. So let's talk about what Sinister Wing brought up. Let's cycle back to that really quick. Because Sinister Wing... oh, I don't either, Mr. Red. I think she's just shy. Sinister Wing brought up an idea that Spike, who is representative of being a dragon, by his very nature, is greedy. It's actually literally a metaphysical aspect of his existence, whereas Rarity, by her very nature, is all about giving and generosity, and thus the two make an interesting yin-yang approach, as a friend, regardless of romantic entanglements. It's interesting to see. God, this is casual, I know. What do you guys think? Are we succeeding here or not? Maybe we really should just do these as ruminations. Good God. I mean, I'd be okay with that. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Let's come back to that. See, the problem is, and this is something I want to talk about later, one of the things they never really properly discuss is how the dragon thing can be reined in. Because we don't really see a lot of that. We see that Spike grows up and gets bigger to be a dragon as a consequence of hoarding. But, oh, I like that, livinations. Or livenations. Livenations doesn't have the same ring to it. Help me out, guys. Let's workshop this. Because, I mean, dragons grow up normally, right? We've seen other dragons who are not jackasses, excuse me my language, who are older. So, why... you could see why I have trouble really talking about this in detail. I do want to say that there is a nice yin and yang thing going on between Spike and Rarity. It's actually funny in its own right, because if you think about it, the dynamic between the two actually helps both to see the... You're hilarious, Javan. See the better parts of each other. Anyways... Spike is also unique, that's true, because of the whole connection to Twilight Sparkle, magic, explosion thing. I know. We'll get there much later. That's what, season 4? Let's move on. Looking at my notes here. Ah, right. Pinkie Pie. This is when Pinkie Pie actually happens. I don't actually think I've seen season 6, Shadow Link. The last episode I saw was... I'm not sure, actually. Which season was it where Chrysalis comes back? And it's up to Discord and Starlight Glimmer, and I can't remember her name, but she's awesome, to go and rescue... Oh, and the Changeling to go and rescue them. Because that episode's awesome. It's actually a two-parter, and it's awesome. Anyways. What was I talking about? Pinkie Pie. Okay. I have to admit something that my niece would hate me if I admitted it. I don't like Pinkie Pie. I feel like Pinkie Pie is too much. Basically, most of the other characters I just mentioned, they have their archetypes and their tropes, and they play them straight with layers. They use those as Javan said, jumping points to develop the actual characters later on. Trixie, that was her name. But Pinkie Pie very rarely actually develops. She does on occasion, and that's the catch. I think that's the biggest reason why I don't like Pinkie Pie, because it is my opinion that they, well, to be blunt about it, that they stuck to the trope too much. There is actual layers to Pinkie Pie. We see this in the show going forward, but they almost never have that be there. Instead, she's just the kooky one, or the party one. Yeah, she becomes obnoxious. Not to the point of actually being a jerk, I agree. She is absolutely not a jerk. I mean, you know, cheese sandwich, right? But she definitely comes across as someone who is far more being there because kids like her because she's Pinkie Pie than actually developing a fleshed out character. There are exceptions to that, thankfully, but this episode is not one of those exceptions. Although, I do want to say... Exactly, Jalvin, and then I will kill them all by turning into Nightmare Lord. I do want to say one other thing about Pinkie Pie, though, in favor of her. I have known people in the past whose minds go faster than their mouths. I mean, technically I'm that way, but you know what I mean? Like, their mind is just going a mile a minute, and they can barely keep up, right? And so they come across as kind of flat. They kind of come across as just sort of bland. But instead, what's actually happening is their brain is just going way faster than them. Now, I know what you're thinking. Pinkie Pie isn't bland. No. But Pinkie Pie does show several similarities to that archetype, I've noticed. Where her brain is just doing all of this, and she's having trouble communicating what's going on there. It's not like Pinkie Pie is stupid. She's actually really, really smart. We see in several episodes exactly how much she has the ability to keep up with things. And I'm going to disagree with that, Baron, but I don't want to get into that story. That's a totally tangent story. Let's just say Ritalin and move on. No, I don't think Pinkie Pie needs Ritalin. That's the problem. So, they have the big party scene. Twilight Sparkle, for some reason, decides to drink hot sauce. To this very day, I do not understand why that happens. Can anyone explain that to me? Shadowlink, you're my resident expert. Why does she drink the hot sauce? She doesn't need an excuse to go upstairs. She just does so. Was it an accident? It's just such a weird scene. Out of nowhere. And I don't get it. I've never gotten it. You know what I did get? Is little details in the background. Because Pinkie Pie was drinking. Okay, that makes sense. Because Pinkie Pie, of course, then put it on a cupcake, which sounds terrible. Although Pinkie Pie's stomach is legendary. Two details I want to draw to your attention. The first is the one everyone knows about. Muffin. Or Derpy, if you prefer. She's in the background during that scene I was just referencing with the hot sauce and all that. And what's funny is I wasn't even looking for her this time. I was like, oh, hey! And of course, you know, the animation error with the eyes, which then became a running gag going forward. It's like Castle Zhao. Oh god, I'm pronouncing that wrong, aren't I? Thank you very much for the sub. As always, much obliged, sir. If you know where you want to put that, let me know. Now, the other detail I noticed, and I actually never noticed this before. There's this bit. You got it. Subnautica. To be continued, as soon as I write this down. Oh god, I closed the document. I closed the document. Of course I did. I figured we were done with donations for the night. How silly of me. Subnautica. So noted. There we go. Not going to close the document this time. Early in the episode, Twilight Sparkle is walking through the library, and she's passing over the hourglass that's in her library. And as she's walking by it, she's talking about Nightmare Moon. And Nightmare Moon actually appears in the hourglass as she's passing by it, while she's talking about her. It's a nice touch. As I've said before, there's a lot of detail. And that's kind of a hallmark of the show in general. But I never noticed that particular detail before. Now everyone's going to tell me how stupid I am for never noticing that before. So then they go to the big party. You know, this is it. The Summer Sun celebration. She's going to raise the sun. And no, this is right at the beginning of the episode, Baron. I did not see it. No, Edster. Pinkie Pie starts guessing about what Nightmare Moon's name is. And one of them is Hokey Smokes. Really? I liked that. That made me laugh. Credit if you get it. And then... Well, then Nightmare Moon reveals herself. And we have this thing where, like, there's a nice camera movement. Again, more of the visual direction thing going on. And then the episode ends. But before we cut off, before I hit right there, I just want to say, how does Nightmare Moon get out? To my knowledge, they never actually answer this definitively. Instead, she just escapes. It's been 1,000 years. You know, how does she get out? See, the thing is, Sinister Wing says, well, it's been 1,000 years, so the spell concluded. Yeah, okay. So, if that was a known variable of the spell, you'd think Celestia would be ready for that. Although, in fairness, Celestia wasn't ready for Discord either, so that's neither here nor there, is it? So, I know I'm probably expecting too much of a kid's TV show, but I don't buy that for a second. I've never bought into that kind of mindset. There needs to be some kind of explanation for this sort of thing. Now, Sinister Wing does point out a good point. In part 2, we do find out that she does actually, that she assigned Twilight to Ponyville and to find some friends, very specifically because of this whole problem that was coming up. Okay. But let's be honest with ourselves, this is a little bit of a plot convenience situation. I think we can all accept that there is a little bit of plot convenience, bad writing in this episode. Because there is. This is just a little bit too, really? Like, there's so many things about this that don't actually make sense if you sit back and think about it for a minute. Now, Shadowlink pointed out something interesting. You know, the stars will aid in her escape. I noticed that this time around. And I was like, but that never goes anywhere. Wait. Huh? But the star... What? I've actually... This is not a joke. I went looking this up because I was so weirded out by this to see if there was ever an official explanation. And I saw some theory crafting, nothing official. One of the theory craftings was, well, clearly the stars are obviously aliens who are going to rescue her. Duh. But to make my point clear, if I'm not making it clear, I do like this show, but I also like Star Trek. That doesn't prevent me from speaking ill of Star Trek if Star Trek does ill. So, especially if you're watching this live or on the YouTube VOD, this is not a sacred cow. I have no problem criticizing this show. You know, I've actually been trying to put together a... Damn it, Javan. I've been trying to put together a headcanon explanation for why she gets out now and why nothing is done to prevent it other than one tiny little tidbit of thing. I've been debating that for a bit. And the problem is, I spiral so wildly out of control that I basically just stop. It's like, no. I give up. There's no explanation. It's a plot hole. Moving on. We're just going to move on from that one. I mean, as Savicom very accurately points out... oh, that's weird, Edster. If, That's true, Savicom. No kidding, Sinister Wing. I was saying something. Lack of explanation, the Discord thing. I can't remember what I was going to talk about. I know about the Clouds of Nightmare. I actually referenced them myself earlier, Shadowlink. Whatever. Doesn't matter. We're basically done. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is chop off the local recording. So for those of you watching the VOD... How'd we do? I will freely admit I was actually nervous about doing this. Despite my statements of the fact that, there's nothing to be ashamed about liking this show and things have gotten better, the harsh reality is that the internet is the internet, and I was expecting things to be a lot worse than this. By the way, thank you, all of you, for being awesome. A few times, yes, Baron, because I'm going to mention... Because I know a few of them. I've actually read some of the comics. Only a few of them. I suppose that's true, Sinister Wing. I suppose that's true. Let me toss the idea I had in the middle of the show at you guys. So obviously I'm wearing my, my Mini Nations uniform here. Well... I'm leaning more and more towards making this a rumination format rather than a mini nation format, but doing it live. The livination or whatever we were calling it, the streamination, right? Now, if we're going to do that, for the sake of workflow, for the sake of efficiency of time, work investment versus money gained, etc., I'd probably only do this once a week. But I do like the idea of doing this. I agree, Javin, but we're not going to use that. This freaking green screen. It's right here. The light's right here. Now this side's bad. I've actually been seriously thinking about just doing this, saying screw it. The problem is there's a freaking logo here, and I hate this logo. Maybe I should just get some duct tape and just, just have a big thing of duct tape. Very professional looking. Just right here. I will kill you, Sinister Wing. I agree, Cairns. We did have a lot to talk about, and I really love talking about this with you guys. There's a lot of go back and forth. The old chair basically died. It was well on its way out. And so I needed a new chair. It's a good thing this chair has actually been working out very well, because it's a really good chair. It's like $500. It's been good for my back, Revan. And that's the problem. My back is not like other people's backs. And I don't mean that to be like, I'm so awesome. No, I mean, legitimately, things that are better for other people's backs actually make mine hurt more. I don't even have... There's actually an attachment, which is over in the living room right now, which you can add for lower back support. Actually, it hurts my back even more to have that thing on. So, this works out quite well for me. Which is good, because I sit for 10 hours a day. Yeah, Gary recommended this one, Eric. Anyways. So, what do you guys think about the idea of doing this weekly? About turning this into our third rumination? Except live, obviously. I don't think so, Bio, no. I need to find more drone footage. I'll tell you right now, I'm kind of already thinking the most logical time to do it would be Wednesday evening. Right alongside Fulby or Flabbergast. We'll just do it right next to him. It'll be like Fulby or Flabbergast. And then MLP. It would be, Javin. No matter what, it has to be at 8 p.m. Regardless of everything else, 8 p.m. is basically the only slot I have available, realistically speaking. 8 p.m. my time, which is when we started today. Any more series this format could work for? Yeah, honestly. There's tons of things this could work for. Yeah, go for it, Kevin. Oh, that sucks, Revan. I'm sorry. I've had to deal with that, too. Oh, no, we do one episode a week, Shadowlink. We could do it on Sunday evening. The specific evening doesn't matter per se, as long as it's not Thursday. I was just thinking Wednesday, because then that would make it Star Trek, and then Livination, or whatever we're going to call these. I'm not going to do TNG live. As much as I like the idea, I'm hesitant to change a feature in mid-stride. You know what I mean? I mean, if we actually... And I also have to add one other thing. You think this was long? Do you have any idea how long we could sit here talking about one episode of Star Trek? I get really efficient with my notes. I get really... I've got a whole system here. I know you can't tell. I have gotten my ruminations down to about 20 minutes on average without saying less, just being more efficient about what I say and how I say it. Because, well, there's a reason those old Voyager ones were closer to an hour. I don't actually understand the question, Kevin, so let me just go ahead and answer the whole thing. My Little Pony is a show that was originally aimed at young Western girls, but because of the fact that they put a lot of time and effort to, for lack of a better way to put it, make a good show, it began to appeal to a larger age group. That's really the long and the short of it. It's a good show. There's a good character focus. Later on, there's a good continuity focus. They do a lot of background stuff. We've been talking about this today. I know you probably just joined us. But there's a whole lot of... That's further back than I thought. There's a whole lot of detail. Tons of attention to detail. You know, that kind of a thing. But yeah, it basically, as Sinister Wing says, basically it's just a good show, regardless of its original intent. It did also get very lucky. That's true. It was definitely a show that probably shouldn't have been as good as it was. That is true, Mr. Red. What about the movies? I've never seen those, so I can't comment on those. Or that. Is there more than one movie? I know there's the one movie, because that just came out this year or last year? It was very recent. I think it was last year. But I haven't seen it. Not really, Kevin. It's just, it's like any other good show. I admit the art style appeals to me. I'm actually, this is going to sound strange, I am extremely picky when it comes to animation. Like, I liked Young Justice a lot, but I really didn't like the art style. And I got to the point where I just had to kind of mentally ignore the art style going through it. You know, I don't like the art style of, God, a lot of shows, really. Even Animaniacs, which is a show I actually rather enjoy quite a bit, is a show that I don't really care for the art style of, so... Now that's an idea, SJ. Well, okay, Kevin, so obviously, I wish you'd been here at the beginning, Kevin. You know what we started this entire discussion about? Mockery. I'm not going to go through the whole speech again, but I pointed out several things in real life that we, all of us in chat, and myself as well, remember being mocked for liking. And inch by inch, we've been getting away from that. It's still there. There's still mockery. But, you know, think of it like this. You watch Star Trek? What are you, some kind of nerd? Well, you actually like comic books? Why don't you read a real book? You like that weird Japanimation crap? God, why don't you watch a real show? And so forth and so on. I actually did watch a little bit of Equestria Girls, and I did not like it. I walked away from that very quickly. It's like Sonic Doctor. You watch The Godfather? Actually, I got another one for you. You watch television? What is wrong with you? Now, I'm not actually old enough to know that one personally, but my mom does. What's wrong with you? Why are you watching the television? God, you are just so strange. Go read a book or something. Thank you, Sonic Doctor. Much obliged as always, sir. And that's towards the... What's the name of that DBZ thing? I guess I'll just write down DBZ. I think we only have the one right now. Video games? What are you, a child? Only kids play video games. But yeah, anyways. Why are you listening to the radio? You remember when theater was this kind of a thing? I don't, because I wasn't alive yet. But... No, I feel you, Javan. We all have our things that we're into. And as I've said many times, as long as you don't take it too far, it's fine. That's really my big point. I have known personally one person who took Star Trek way too far. Just way too far. And it was an issue. And I tried to reach out to him, and I tried to help him out with that, and it didn't work, and I basically just stopped being his friend. I just stopped interacting with him. Yeah. Anyways. That's true, Sinister Wing. Did that person beam himself into a wall? No. I knew a couple people, again, past tense, knew a few people who were way into WoW, too. And that's another one. I mean, it's extremes, right? It doesn't matter what it's about, it's extremes. Imagine if you ate too many carrots every day. My skin used to turn orange from eating too many carrots a day. I'm not actually kidding. Mom had to cut me back. I've told that story. I was back in high school or college, one of the two. I love carrots, Sinister Wing. What do you want from me? I only eat about a pound a day. I want to try a weekly thing with this. How many of you are with me? I know that's going to slow it down a lot because, you know, there's a huge difference between once a week and 10 times a week. But I have an absolutely insane workload. If I'm just being real for a second, I have a massive workload. Constantly. I am always busy and I always have something to do. And I would like to do this. This is something I want to do. I liked the Livination. I liked this format. And I would like to continue just talking about MLP with you guys who are awesome. So this is one of the big reasons I want to push for the Streamination or whatever. We need to figure out a name. We need to figure out a name because I do want to keep doing this. As soon as I cut off this stream, I'm gonna go work on a DS9 episode because I want to get at least one more done today. Yeah, I can get another one done tonight. It's what episode is this? Field of Fire. You got it, Eric. Give me a second. Pull out the coin. Heads. Nah, it's cool, Kevin. The editing really isn't a big deal at this point in my life. Ooh, that's a good idea, Cashel. Actually, my mother, lore mom, really quick side note, my lore mom was poking fun at me for saying, God, you add jalapenos to everything. And I was like, she's like, is there anything you eat that doesn't have jalapenos? And I was like, well, I you know, the eggs I have in the morning, I don't have with jalapenos. And she's like, what are you thinking? I wonder if I could add jalapenos to my eggs. So I'm going to try that next time I go to the grocery store. Pick up some more fresh jalapenos. All right. I do need to get working on that DS9 episode. So let's hammer this in. Name ideas and day of the week. These are the two things we need to hammer out. Now, all of you here right now are probably the target audience, so I feel safe discussing this with you. So, why don't I go ahead... No, Karens. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a straw poll. That's the wrong folder. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw up a straw poll that's just every day of the week, okay? Whoops. Except for Thursday, because I can't do it Thursday. See you around, Javan. I'm just going to call them Livination for right now. So this is a multiple answer poll. What I want you to do is I want you to answer each day that you would be available to watch these. And you can probably see. I imagine most of you would say Sunday because it is Sunday and you're here. And I'm fine with doing it on Sunday. So, go vote, please. I need feedback on this. While you are voting, so we've got Streaminations, we've got Justifinations. No. We've got Streaminations, we've got Livinations. Except it would be Livinations, but that just sounds weird, doesn't it? What are you doing? Livinationing. What? Livenation. Just sounds wrong. So we got Streamination. What do you think? Any other ideas? We gotta brand this stuff. No. Because the idea is to do this for stuff other than My Little Pony going forward. Obviously, we're going to be doing My Little Pony for a while, but this is intended to be a new feature, as in something that's not just going to be focused on My Little Pony. Hearthinations. Hang on. Do I still have that? Screaminations. Does anyone have any serious suggestions? Streamination. There we go. Ruminations Live Edition. Wait, Ruminations Extreme, but the X is capitalized? I'm sorry, I said no more joke options. Ruminations After Dark. I'm your host, the Lore Runner. Today we'll be talking about My Little Pony, whatever the name of the episode is. Hang on, give me one moment. I will look up the name of the next episode. The name of the episode is Friendship is Magic, apparently. Part 2. God, I always forget. There's some weird episodes in Season 1, now that I'm looking at. Winter Wrap-Up is Season 1. Swarm of the Century is Season 1. The Sonic Rainboom, Season 1. Which season was it where they just would not stop hammering the cutie mark thing? Only if it was the movie, Kevin. Oh yeah? Well, do you like Magical Mystery Cure? What do you think? Livenations or Streaminations? I'm kind of rotating between those two. That's true. Adventures. Hang on. Ruminations After Dark. Yeah. No. Yeah, sure. Here you go. Pretty sure that's it. No, I have not, Alex. Basically, Shadowlink, I got a little tired of the cutie mark stories. To put it simply. Hey, they're trying to find their cutie marks. Hey, they're trying to find their cutie marks. Hey, they're trying to find their cutie marks. I get it. What's funny is the episode where they get their cutie marks is actually among my favorite episodes. Like, seriously, it's a really good episode. In my opinion. Yeah, that's true, Eric. Livenations. It's kind of like Loriums. How do you spell it? Because it's an E to an I right next to each other. At that point, we're just playing, there's a term for that, like language mutators or whatever, where we're just crushing affixes to each other. I suppose, so someone type Streamination really quick for me. Thank you, Platty. That was very quick. See, I think the thing is, Streamination kind of flows both in typing and in speaking, which is always very important when it comes to these kind of things. In fact, even the name Mini Rumination was kind of a compromise from the original terminology. So I think we will go ahead and go with Streaminations, because it's very smooth. It sounds, you get it immediately, as long as you know what the ruminations are. it's just kind of an immediate thing. I think we'll go ahead and call these Streaminations. Let's check the poll. Where are we at? Has everyone voted? Has anyone not voted? Hit a refresh here. That's true, Edster. Streaming is biological definition live. So we are actually still calling it Liveinations in its own way. Vote, Eric.
Give in.
Give in, bio. See, my votes actually matter. Or what I mean by that is voting on my show actually matters. Unlike the presidential elections, Huthor, vote right now or die. I don't care which. Both are acceptable as well. If we actually do a lamentation in a streamination... Ooh, that's a good question. Because that would be a streamentation, is how that would sound. Streamentation. Streamentation, there we go. That would be the terminology. Streamentation would be a live lamentation. Oh, sorry, here's the link. I know I say Liveinations in the thing, but we're calling them Streaminations. I know, it sounds awful. Streamentation. It sounds like a disease, doesn't it? Which is appropriate when you think about it. I have to admit, I don't think any episode that I can think of off the top of my head would qualify for a Streamentation. Actually, it's a drone, Sonic Doctor. This is drone footage. You know what? Hang on. There's one episode I don't like off the top of my head. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see here. What was that? Dragon Shy. I don't know the names all that well. Oh, what the heck is the name of it? I almost always skip it every time I see it. Well, Huthor, these are Streaminations. And we're trying to decide which night we do it on. I don't think anything I've seen in MLP is lamentation worthy. Which is funny, because that's also true for Rebels as well as Young Justice. Some of the songs I don't care for. I absolutely agree with that. Well, at the moment, My Little Pony, Huthor. But the idea is for this to be a going forward format. To be able to do this kind of a thing. Because right now, if we don't do this... This has been... I have been ripping my mind apart for literally months at this point in time. Trying to find a way to make Mini Nations work with my schedule. This is what I've come up with. Is doing a live thing in the evening and basically doing it in the same overall format, just discussing with you guys. Now, we did one earlier as a test run. It worked great. It was a lot of fun. I felt very confident talking about it. You guys were awesome. So I think this kind of works out. So this is what we're doing going forward. The question then being which day, which night, more accurately, we're going to be doing them on, which is hence the voot. I'm probably going to cut off that voot basically, tonight, because I imagine you guys are my chosen audience, therefore. Actually, I really like the Smile song. I even made a Cordons mix of it. I'm sorry, Huthor. I really am. If life was kind, I would totally do Rebels like this, but I kind of already did. It's a shame, because Rebels would have been awesome to think about it. Actually, I've never posted it, no, Savacom, because it's a song that's copyrighted to hell and back. Well, I mean, we do have Clone Wars Season 7 coming up at some point, Huthor. And The Mandalorian. And, I don't know, we've got the new Star Trek shows coming out. Yeah, there's some possibilities here. Yeah, Sunday is definitely winning right now, which makes sense. It is Sunday right now. So you guys are here. Oh yeah, Young Justice season 3 and 4. That's also a possibility. As much as I want as many people to be live as possible, and I know that that's not always going to be feasible. I mean, that's just life, right? Okay, now this is really bothering me. I can't go to bed, and by go to bed I mean go back to work, until I figure out which episode it is I keep skipping. So let me just go down the list. There's Ticketmaster, which I like. Applebuck Season, which is kind of dumb. Griffin Brush Off, which is okay. Ghostbusters, which is okay. Dragon Shy is fine. Look Before Sleep is fine. Bridal Gossip is good. Swarm of the Century is irritating. Winter Wrap Up is fine. Call of the Cutie is good. All Other Friends, Suited for Success is good. Pinky Sense is good. Sonic Ramboom kind of irritates me. Stairmaster's okay. Showstoppers, is that it? Is it Showstoppers? That might be it. I know that feeling, Kevin. Sundays I'm usually alright. I also am usually free on Sundays because most of my friends are not. So I usually have my Sundays to myself. Showstoppers might have been it. They do have a song at the end of Showstoppers which is actually painful to listen to. Green Isn't Your Colors? No. Over a Barrel? Eh. Bird in the Hoof? No, that's alright. Cutie Mark Chronicles? That's a good one. I like that. All's Well That Ends Well? No. Party of One is funny, but no. Best Night Ever? I actually really like Best Night Ever. I know it's meant to be painful, but as I've said many, many times, deliberately painful is still painful. We got Return of Harmony, which is amazing. Lesson Zero, which is okay. Lunar Eclipse. This is going to bother me. Forgive me a moment. Sisterhood Special. Cutie Box. May the Pest... That's a good one. Mysterious Ne'er-Do-Well. That's a good one. Sweet and Elite is a good one. Secret of My Excess. That's a good one. Family Appreciation Day. Baby K. Heartwarming Eve. Heartwarming Eve. I actually really like Heartwarming Eve. Last Roundup. Is this season 2? This is season 2, okay. Super Society Squeezy, that's a good one. Read It and Weep, that's a good one. Maybe. Hearts and Hooves Day. Friend Indeed, I like that one. That also contains Smile. Why Sinister Wing? Put Your Hoof Down, It's About Time, Dragon Quest. I actually named one Dragon Quest, for God's sakes. Hurricane, Fluttershy, Ponyville Confidential, Mysterious Mystery Express, At Canterlot Wedding. Cider is, in fact, usually alcoholic. Shadow Link. Crystal Empire with the most boring villain ever. Is this it? No. God, this is going to bother me now. There's an episode I've skipped like every time it's come up on the list. Even when I was with my niece, I'm like, no. Let's skip over this one. And I can't remember which one it is. I guess we'll get there. At some point. And I'll be like, oh yeah, it was this episode. And it's just going to bother the crap out of me until we get there. No, I don't remember the plot. I just remember it really... It was an episode all about lying. I remember that because I hate lying. And I hate how fiction tends to approach lying. Like it's a joke. Like, ha 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 ha, they're lying and it's going completely out of control. Isn't that funny? I hate that. Tanks for the Memories, that's season 5. That's a good episode. That's a very... Was it Honest Apple? That's further on, though, isn't it? Slice of Life is another personal favorite, by the way. It's a big favorite of mine. It might be the one about her lying in the past, with the Apple one. That might be the one I was thinking of. The Hoof Fields. I'm looking forward to going back through this show. And seeing the new stuff for live. Speaking of which, it looks like Amazon has up to season 8 now. And if we look at 9... Is 9 available? No, not yet. It will be probably, hopefully, by the time we get there. Oh, God. Yeah, zany humor like that tends to irritate me too, Alex. Good night, Aethel. Have some good dinner. Anyways, let's rewind back to Season 1 here, because the next episode will be Friendship is Magic Part 2. I'm looking forward to rewatching this show. Alright. We're calling them Streaminations. We're doing them Sundays. Yeah, I think we can commit to that. I think we can just kind of tack that on, make that a new part of our streaming Sunday night Streaminations. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I like that, and I'm looking forward to it. I may change my uniform, because this is the old Mini Nations uniform, but I could wear something else. I don't know. I might change the background. This is also the Mini Nations background. You notice this is the only thing I use this background for, really, through the Mini Nations. I know what you're thinking. Mini Nations? The idea is episodic, Kuthor. Basically the same way we do Ruminations. At this point, this is effectively going to be Ruminations done live. That's the whole idea, Kuthor. Partially because I had a lot to say about MLP, but again, I think this format could fit a lot of shows. And I'd like to do this going forward. And if I'm being completely honest, and I think I could say this now that we're at the very end of my stream, I prefer streaming to recording anyways. So, no, Mr. Red. This is replacing the Mini Nations. The Mini Nations, as I've tried to explain many times, the Mini Nations don't work. They're very difficult and frustrating to produce, and they just kind of get in the way of the rest of my job. This is a way to try and slide it in a way that it doesn't cause that same problem. So, no, I don't have anything, any MLP merch. In fact, until just a few years ago, I didn't have any merch in general. But, I do have a Yoshi? Does that count? I have Pokemon. Does that count? There's another one. There's another one for you. Remember when it was a big thing to make fun of people for liking Pokemon? I remember that. I agree, Darth Tyrant. It is the favorite part of my job. I pulled this girl out earlier. I love how her ears flap around. Anyways. There you go. She's so delicate. All right. It was trying to eat me, yes. It was succeeding at eating me. I mean, it's a melodic. These are high tier. This is my favorite water Pokemon. Teach this thing surf, and I mean, look at what's happening here. All right, I need to get to work. I really do. I want to finish this episode because I have to. I have a quota to meet. So, thank you all for joining me for this successful experiment. We're just going to start doing this going forward. I don't know when I'll update the site, but I'll update the site at some time to recognize that we're doing this every Sunday evening, and I'll mention it going forward. Otherwise, I'll see you guys Thursday for some D&D. And now to turn completely evil and destroy the entire universe.